Tongaat Hewlett's business rescue practitioners have given sugarcane farmers the assurance that they will be paid the more than 400 million rand that they're owed before the 11th of this month. Payment is overdue for 6,000 tons of sugarcane delivered to mills in KwaZulu-Natal last month. The assurance comes after SA cane growers expressed concern that non-payment would affect about 4,300 growers and more than 14,000 workers. More than 4,000 of the growers are small-scale cane growers. Well, for a little bit more on this, we're now joined by South African Farmers Development Association Chief Operations Officer, Thandokwakhe Sibiya. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good evening, Peter. Thank you very much for having me on your program. Thanks so much.
So are the sugarcane farmers assured? Are they feeling confident that they will be paid what's due to them from Tongaat Hewlett?
Well, at least for the short term, Peter, we had our first interaction with the business rescue practitioners this morning. We had a meeting where we impressed upon them the need to prioritize these resource-poor rural farmers scattered across the countryside in the TH payment that have been waiting for their payment at least since Friday last week and not knowing whether they'll ever be able to get their money, because as you'll understand, once you enter the business rescue process, then the practitioners take over the finances and the bank accounts of the company, and then they do their own workings in terms of who they prioritize, how much they should be paid, and when they should be paid. So growers were in that kind of a limbo situation. But when we sat down with the business rescue practitioners this morning, with some of the Tongaat Hewlett executives, we were assured that they understand the situation that we are facing, and they're trying all they can to negotiate with at least about 9 financial institutions that have been working with Tongaat Hewlett to be able to convince them to release working capital so that they can be able to pay all the growers what is due to them for cane that was delivered in September, which was due for payment at the end of October.
All right, you said short term, which means that your problems aren't over even after this payment. Take us through that.
Yeah, I think what we're looking at is to at least get a solution for now, and we're taking things one step at a time. So we were talking about the payment that is due, which was due at the end of October, and that was before the onset of the business rescue process. So from this week, we have stepped into, or at least maybe from the 27th of October, we stepped into the business rescue process, which means whatever funding that they raise as part of the what they call post-commencement funding is then going to be allocated differently. But what we are looking at is to at least keep the mills operating and farmers paid until the end of the current sugarcane crushing season. And the season usually runs from the beginning of April, and it's going to end very soon in the next, let's say, 7 weeks. We're looking at the first week of December. So that's the horizon that we're looking at for now, to say at least let's keep the business open and let's keep the mills running and let's keep the farmers delivering the rest or the remainder of their cane until the end of the current. What's going to happen beyond that, it's going to be a subject of negotiations and discussions, and in fact, the plan, because the business rescue process, part of what they need to be doing in the first 25 days of their appointment as a business rescue practitioners is to come up with the business rescue plan that must be canvassed with all the creditors and be voted for. Then once it is supported by everybody, it will then be implemented. So they are just very new for now in the role. They started yesterday on Monday. So they have about 25 days to come up with that plan. So that's what the engagements today started looking at, to say, when are we going to have that plan so that we can at least have some uncertainty, because for now, everything is just in the works. We do not know what that plan is going to look like. But what we want to do at least is to make sure that for the season, farmers are able to finish the harvesting program, get paid, then we'll look at the rest of the plan, as days go by.
All right. So as we speak now, all that is confirmed is the cane that has been delivered already. But there is still cane that is still in the hands of the farmers, yet to be delivered for the rest of this season. And that is still a grey area at this stage. Am I reading you correctly?
That is correct, Peter. That is correct. But maybe what is a bit of a relief is that at this time of the year or of the season, you should look at least maybe 80% of the sugarcane having been delivered. So what remains is maybe a little that is left to finish off the season. But it is a different story for small-scale farmers, because for your small-scale farmer, they deliver through the season, and usually they just make one delivery because of the small areas that they farm and smaller tonnages that they produce. So you deliver what you deliver as a small-scale farmer, and that's all for the season. So whoever hasn't delivered up to now, it's not just about having not delivered 80% of your crop. It means you haven't delivered anything at all for what you've been growing for the past 12 months or 18 months. But at least for the coastal areas that we're looking at under Thandokwakhe, we're looking at a shorter growing cycle of about 12 months. So we want to make sure that at least all those small-scale farmers are able to deliver their cane, because if they can't do that and there's no guarantee, it means the situation is going to look bleak for them. They won't be able to take their kids to school, meet their household needs, be able to take care of the crop next season in terms of putting in the fertilizer, the chemicals, and paying their workers. So we want to make sure that small-scale farmers at least are guaranteed that for the rest of the season, they'll be able to take their cane to the mill and at least be able to run their operations normally. Then we can take care of the next season, starting next year in April, during the off-crop, when we are busy then negotiating the plan that the business rescue practitioners are going to work out in collaboration with all the industry stakeholders.
All right. So consumers at the end of this cycle, they're not going to experience shortages of sugar, are they?
Well, I think the plan that we're looking at in terms of making sure that we keep the mills operating and farmers delivering and getting paid at least until the end of the season, that will make sure that there is very minimal disruption to the supply of sugar into the market. And by the way, we must indicate that South Africa is a net exporter of sugar. So we supply the local market with enough sugar to the point that we've got some excess that we can actually export. So I would say at this point in time, we are really not looking at disruptions in terms of the supply of sugar into the local market. But that is to the extent that we are able to make sure that the mills keep open and crushing until the end of the season.
With the engagements that you've had with the business rescue team, it's still early days, as you said. Do you get a sense that Thandokwakhe can be saved?
Well, it's not something that we can maybe give a guarantee or a firm view about, but all we know is that although Thandokwakhe has had their problems, they have been operating. It's been business as usual, obviously, trying to deal with their financial woes and trying to deal with the massive debt that they've been dealing with, which I think up to this point, through whatever strategy that they've employed, they've been able to slash a debt of about 12 billion to the numbers that we hear, but at the moment sitting at around 6 billion. So while they've been struggling, I think they've been keeping the business going. Obviously, we were not very close to the numbers and the workings inside the company. I think the executives and even the board that took a decision to implement this Section 129 process in terms of the Companies Act, they have a closer look at the numbers. So perhaps they thought it's the right time right now to go for the voluntary business rescue process. But it seems like from the step that they've taken was a precautionary one and a responsible one to say, let's not wait for things to go very bad before we do something. Let's rather voluntarily intervene now and introduce this process so that we can keep the business afloat. Because as you'll understand, business rescue and liquidation are two different things. So we have less of a panic at this point in time because we are looking at a process that was implemented by the company itself voluntarily. It wasn't forced upon them, and it's not a messy process where liquidators come in and try and salvage whatever they can salvage before the company goes down. So I would say, in a sense, we believe that this process, or rather we are quite optimistic that this process which is being implemented, that it will keep the company stable and going, and maybe restructuring and changing some of the business processes, etc. But we are optimistic that the company will emerge stronger after this process.
Mr. Sibiya,
time will tell, obviously.
Yeah, Mr. Sibiya, we'll leave it there for the time being, but we certainly wish your growers the best, particularly the small-scale farmers who are desperately dependent on making sure their crop gets to Thandokwakhe and they get paid. So let's hope that the rest of the season goes well and you prepare for the next year. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Peter. We hope so as well. We hope for the best. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you. All right, that's the Cane Growers Association, the Development Association Chief Operations Officer speaking to us about the relief that the farmers are getting, that they will be paid in the short term. They're hoping that the balance of the season will be dealt with, and then we'll see.